The Nintendo DS is many things to many people, but to me it is an absolute puzzle powerhouse. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about today, with 4 absolutely zany and off-the-wall puzzle games. To be honest, I just didn't know how to group all these puzzle games together. They're just kind of weird, or even kind of normal puzzle games I like on the DS. They all got good vibes, they're all sick. Let's get right into it. Beginning today's video is an absolute banger, Bookworm. Now, I believe Bookworm predates the DS by a bit. I think it started on PC or something. There's a Game Boy version, I believe. Like a lot of puzzle games, this really does benefit from having a touchscreen. This is basically like the Anagrams iPhone game, or just the Anagrams kind of game in general, or like Boggle meets Tetris. So there's just like a grid of words. Every time you clear tiles, which you do by matching letters into words, new tiles fall from the top of the screen and replace them. So, like a lot of great puzzle games, there's not a super complicated mechanic here, but it's a really cool one that, I don't think really any other series had done before Bookworm, and I think it works great. It's really fun matching the letters together and making words. There's also a cool dictionary, or thesaurus, I forget what the game calls it, but you're seeing it on screen, mechanic in this game where it'll have a section of animals, so it'll count when you spell the word cat or the word dog or the word rat, and it just creates that kind of incentive to keep coming back to fill out that thesaurus as you're playing. The worm's got a cool attitude. I think he just says Bookworm when you start the game in a very high-pitched voice, which is sick. Yeah, he's got a good attitude to him, a little bratty, if I dare say, even. Very much like a know-it-all type of guy. I don't know how much more I can say about this game. Pretty simple. There's no deeper mechanics here. You are just kind of doing puzzle mode or challenge mode or endless mode like most puzzle games. It's got all that going for it. It's a really cool game. If you like falling block puzzle games, you just have to play it. Game number 2 is the most straightforward one in this video for sure, which is Bust-A-Move DS. Is this called Bust-A-Move, or is this called Puzzle Bobble or Bubble Bobble? Why are they all their own things? I'm assuming it's a translation thing, but sometimes we get Bust-A-Move, sometimes we get Puzzle Bobble. It really depends. Whatever, this is those games. You flick the thing at the stuff, and then it clears if it's the same color. Yeah, this is as polished as any version of Bust-A-Move is. It works well, I think. Similar to Bookworm, this really does benefit from being on a touchscreen, that tactile response of pulling the slingshot back with the stylus. And then obviously another great thing is the 2-screen system, letting you have a big vertical view of everything that's happening. That works great. Although I will say, one thing that kind of confused me about this game was the length of time they expect you to play in one sitting. Which, maybe I'm a zoomer, brain rot, whatever. But you'll be playing, rounds of this game for, 30 minutes to 45 minutes. There's a bunch of worlds or levels, and each level has multiple stages that you'll go through, and you have to beat them all from start to finish for the game to, count your score. And that might be fine for some people, but, I don't know, I don't want to play, 7 levels of Puzzle Bobble at a time, especially when there are a lot of them that are very hard. It just becomes a thing of, I open Puzzle Bobble or I open puzzle games in general, really, because I want something to play for, a couple minutes when I'm just, sitting somewhere. It's not really, I don't expect to get lost in the puzzle games unless they're Tetris Attack or Puyo Puyo, then I do get lost in them. But besides that, I don't really expect it, especially not with something like Bust-A-Move, which can honestly get a little frustrating after a bit, although, I do like it in short sessions. So it is just a bit odd that this game wants you to play for so long. Obviously, there's, an endless mode and stuff, too, so you're not beholden to the stages of this game. You can play it kind of in your own way, and there's, the usual affair of other modes for a puzzle game. But yeah, overall, just a super solid version of Bust-A-Move. All of these games, I think, are cheap. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure all these games are very cheap also, which is cool about puzzle games. Bust-A-Move is a great one to have on the DS. The DS or the 3DS would really be the system to play this game on. I couldn't think of a better one. The reason I couldn't call this video, cute or quirky puzzle games, I was gonna call it something to that effect, but this one is, as serious as a puzzle game could ever get, and that's Puzzle Quest. This game is sick. I'm in deep with this one right now. This also is another puzzle game I found myself being able to get lost into. It really is just Bejeweled, but they took Bejeweled and stuffed an RPG into it very successfully. So Bejeweled, or Columns, or really any of those types of games, Candy Crush, you're trying to match 3 or more of the same color, and in this case, each color represents an elemental mana, so you'll have air mana, or fire mana, or water mana. Clearing groups of 3 of any mana gives you that mana back in your storage, and that's how you cast spells. So for example, the class that I played has a spell called Forest Fire, which costs 8 fire and 8 air mana. So every time I get that, I can cast that and do damage to the enemy. Along with the different mana orbs, there are also skulls, which just do direct like melee damage basically, and like experience orbs and coins, which either give you more experience or more coins, and they're useful for grinding, but in actual gameplay, they kind of just end up being filler, which isn't a bad thing. Like, sometimes you need a turn where you don't achieve much, and I'll get into why in a sec. They're not, like, very pertinent to battle in the moment, but they're good for grinding, and there is a lot of grinding in this game. I think what really makes this game for me is the fact that you share one board with your opponent, so you're both... It's not like Puyo Puyo or Puzzle Fighter, where you both have your own, like, separate screen, and you can mess with each other, but it doesn't affect each other. You are taking turns matching things on one bejeweled screen, pretty much. So there'll be times where, like, oh, I want to clear blue orbs so that I get more blue mana because I need to cast my healing spell or whatever. But I actually have to not do that because doing that would make the skulls fall in a way that my opponent could then clear them on their turn and do a bunch of damage to me. So there's stuff like that in this game where it really makes you consider more than just like, you can't just kind of mindlessly swipe. I mean, sometimes it's that, but on something like Tetris Attack or something, I'm just looking for any match that can come up. In something like Puzzle Quest, it really does benefit you to think about all your options. There's a story here, but it's mostly just all dialogue you'll skip. I mean, I guess I can't speak for you. Maybe you won't skip the dialogue, but I really couldn't imagine someone not skipping the dialogue. The story's not important. It's really about going to the different challenges or the different quests you get and just upgrading your loadout or like your stats and everything. Obviously, there's like shops where you can buy stuff with gold, like armor or weapons that have different effects in battle. You can get mounts, which you can train at your citadel, which that's a whole different minigame where you have like a time limit to beat someone. You can forge items, and that's a separate minigame where you have to clear scrolls to make the enchantment work. I don't know how enchanting works. I'm not a magician or anything. Magicians in the chat sound off if that's how enchanting works. You can capture enemies, so if you capture an enemy, you can then go to your citadel and go to the dungeon, and you play a mini game to unlock the spells that they use against you. So you can incorporate your enemy's spells into your character build. It reminded me also like the 3DS era Fire Emblems, where you're trying to like swap genes with people and try to do all these weird reclassings so you get extra abilities. It's a lot like that, where you just kind of get infinite creativity and infinite options in how you build your character. And yeah, there's just a ton of stuff like that, and like, this game just goes so in-depth with its RPG mechanics. And that's really what it is. It's not an RPG in the sense that there's like a beautiful story or anything. I mean, the story could be amazing. Like I said, I'm not reading it, so I don't know. So yeah, there is a story here, but it's not really about that. It's about pure mechanics stuffed into a puzzle game, and that's why this game is so replayable and so like bingeable for me, because you know, you're always trying to unlock a new piece of armor so that you can make your build better. So I really recommend this game, especially if you like RPGs. Like, it makes me think, you know, why aren't there more games that combine puzzle and RPGs? I know there's Puzzle Quest 2. I have it. I haven't really played it yet. I'm only 15 hours into this one, and it's like 30 or 40 hours, so I still have a bit ahead of me. But yeah, if you guys know any games that are like mixtures of puzzle and RPG in a similar way to this one, let me know, because it's really working for me. The final game for this video is Squishy Tank. This is a huge one. This is one of those puzzle games that is like 95% personality and charm. A lot of the job of a puzzle game is just to make me kind of tap at a screen for a bit. Like it's like those videos of like frogs playing Fruit Ninja or something. This game does that with a lot of personality and charm. The story of this game, which is very important, unlike Puzzle Quest, the story of Squishy Tank is very important. It's kind of like a meta commentary on war games and war in general. Totally. It's not just a bunch of cartoon characters. I'm not reading too deep into it at all. But basically, you are Squishy Tank or a Squishy Tank. I don't really think Squishy Tank's a singular entity. There are many of them. And you're fighting for some reason. And you want to be a hero, but you're actually just a very disposable little tank. And there's tons of you, and you all get blown up. The game is, like Collapse, or like any of those games where it's just you find colors touching each other that match, and then you touch them, and they clear. But each level of quotas of like, you need to get 50 yellow faces, and 50 blue faces, and 50 blue faces. What a band that would be. Sorry. And like 50 purple faces. And then you have to match them all, and then you beat the level, and then there's a funny little cutscene about the Squishy Tank being like, I don't want to die, and then he dies. And that's kind of the humor of the game. There are like power-ups and stuff that mix it up a bit. They're not like super innovative. It's like a clear a row, or clear a vertical row, a column, I think is what those are called. And you have like a little countdown timer, so you need to like consistently keep finding matches, because if your timer runs out, that's like your health basically, and then you lose the level. And obviously, if you keep matching stuff, it stays full and doesn't go down. So in effect, it's a very fast-paced version of Collapse that doesn't feel quite so pointless like some Collapse type games can, because of the time limit and because of the cute little story. And the touchscreen or the dual screen mechanic is used here to show, obviously, the collapsing. And then the top screen is a fun little animation of all the squishy tanks being blown up or attacking the enemy that kind of like mirrors how you're doing on the bottom screen. Actually, I don't know how closely it mirrors how you're doing on the bottom screen because I'm kind of focusing on the bottom screen, not really looking at the top screen. But it appears like there's a bunch of little things that are getting blown up. You'll see it in the footage. And the one thing that this game gets so right, besides just its overall humor, I think this game is very funny, is the sound effects. Like, as a disciple of Puyo, as I said that like rolled off my tongue too easily. That was concerning. But as a Puyo Puyo enjoyer, I know that sound design is like a huge boon to puzzle games when they're good. This one has those sounds that I've categorized as things that I think regular people might think are annoying, but I just think they're either funny or cute. Just very high-pitched, like, oh no! There's that one soundbite that really just gets stuck in my head, and just a bunch of like explosions and yelling, which is cute in this game for some reason. I'm saying it out loud. It's like, yeah, it's explosions and yelling, but it's cute in this game. And one more thing I want to point out for really no reason is that your like sergeant, who's a human and is the guy who's like ordering the sentient little tank guys to do stuff, calls you fat body the whole time, which is a little mean, but also I think it's like a translation thing, because obviously, I assume that this game was made in Japan. So I'm assuming there's some Japanese word that means something equivalent to that, but it's just one of those funny, like, words that gets used that I'm like, nice, that's funny. So yeah, that's why you should play Squishy Tank. If you're a puzzle game fan on the DS, I definitely could do at least 1 or 2 more videos about DS puzzle games, because like I said, there's a ton of them, or just puzzle games in general, or any games. Let me know. Like and subscribe, please, and thank you, and play Puzzle Quest.